Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everyone.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer insights and ideas for how emerging small and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can establish and grow their business.
Bruce and I have been working in CPG commercial operations for over 30 years, working on brands of all sizes. By commercial operations, we mean all aspects involved in establishing and growing brands across channels and platforms. On our show, we bring on guests that are brand founders, leaders, investors, as well as all kinds of suppliers to these emerging brands that are subject matter experts to share their unique insights with the audience.
To keep up with the show, please follow the Road to Retail podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Leave us a review and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. You can also check out our website at www.road2retail.com and follow The Road to Retail on LinkedIn. Let's get to today's episode. Today's show is sponsored by Retail and Response. You've heard it a million times on this podcast. It's not about getting your product on the retail shelf. It's about moving product off the shelf and hitting the retailer's sales velocity hurdles fast. Otherwise, they're going to begin the discontinuation process. Trust me. A slow sales start can be fatal to your brand. You need consumers coming in seeking your brand. You know, the one they heard about on radio or saw on TV. If you think radio or TV advertising is too expensive, you need to speak with our friends at Retail and Response. With over 30 years helping drive hundreds of millions of dollars of sales for their clients, Retail and Response can get your brand on radio and TV for pennies on the dollar. Check them out at retailandresponse.com. That's retailandresponse.com. Today's Road to Retail episode is powered by Market Performance Group, MPG, a leading omnichannel commerce agency delivering integrated commercial solutions that accelerate profitable growth. MPG's new growth initiative helps brands of any size win in every channel, whether launching DTC, scaling on Amazon, or entering brick-and-mortar. Its team, veterans from top retailers, CPGs, and digital platforms, connects brands with consumers across the full funnel, delivering right-size strategies, strategic go-to-market plans, advanced analytics, and deep retailer relationships for exceptional business results. Check them out at marketperformancegroup.com. Hello again, everybody, and how are you? Welcome to the latest episode of The Road to Retail. Oh my gosh, look who got in the door. It's Tracy Priest. Tracy, how are you today?
Fantastic, and Happy New Year to everybody, especially you, Bruce, and to our audience. And I think we've got a great show today. So glad to kick off the new year.
Rolling into 26, and here we go. With that in mind, Tracy, tell us who we've tricked into being our first guest today.
Our first guest of 2026 is Luke Schneider, and Luke is the CEO and founder of Fire Department Coffee. So welcome to our first episode of 2026, Luke. Great to have you, and thanks so much for being our first guest.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Bruce. Honored to be on your show. Appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right in. So, Luke, tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about how you got into the coffee business.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in my earlier childhood in California, Southern California. Moved to St. Charles, Illinois when I was a teenager, went to high school out there. After high school, ended up joining the military. I decided I wanted to be a firefighter. So I found out that there was firefighters in the military and in the Navy particularly. They have a lot of firefighters, and they do shipboard firefighting and train shipboard firefighters in the Navy. So I decided I was going to go into the Navy, did that, with a goal to be a firefighter in the Navy and then get out and then become a civilian firefighter. And that was what I did. I was a shipboard firefighter in the Navy for 4 years, got out, started testing for fire departments, got hired in Rockford, Illinois, became a firefighter paramedic for the city of Rockford. And that was my dream job and what I wanted to do. And never thought I would do anything else. And then during that time, I met my wife. She was a barista. And as a firefighter, we drink a lot of coffee. So I was a big drinker of coffee, mainly for the caffeine to stay alert and awake, working long hours and long shifts. But as I got into learning more about coffee and really enjoying that, sharing that with my wife and tasting new coffees and trying new coffees and learning new coffees, we said, why don't we start roasting coffee? So we learned how to do that. And the plan was we were going to sell it at farmers markets. So I kind of got into business on accident. One thing led to another. Out of all the coffees we did, I did this fire department blend, and it had a mission to support. In the very beginning, it supported a camp for kids that had burns, a camp in Illinois called Camp I and Me. And so I really loved that I was able to combine the passion and the craft of coffee with a mission to give back. And that's really what sparked that, because as we did these tasting events, we had like 20,000 in savings. So we ended up purchasing a 5-kilo roaster, rented out a small space in a strip mall, built it out so that we could sell, with the health department. We were certified with the local and state health department. And we did these tasting events, and out of all the coffees we did, all the single origin coffees, all the specialty coffees, everybody wanted the fire department blend. So that's really where it started, and just wanted to combine that love for coffee and the mission to give back and support. So I told my wife I was going to start a company and call it Fire Department Coffee, and started that in 2016. Started as a direct-to-consumer company, and that was where it all began. And the one thing just continued to lead to another. And about 3 years ago, I ended up leaving the fire department, which is something I never thought I would do, because I was already doing my dream job, which I love to do. But through Fire Department Coffee, we're able to support and give back to firefighters and fire departments. And we also have a disaster relief fire truck that we're able to support communities in times of disaster. So in many ways, I even though I left the fire department, I feel like I never left, because a lot of our team members are firefighters that I worked with, firefighters in other states. And our mission is to support our fellow firefighters. So it's been an incredible journey. And here I am today talking to people I would have never probably met if I didn't get into CPG or coffee. So it's been an incredible journey, and one that has taught me a lot along the way.
Well, Luke, a couple of things here before we go on. So first off, thank you for your service.
Yes.
Second, a firefighter in the Navy. So let's see, you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean. It's full of gas and probably ammunition. What could possibly go wrong if there's a fire on a ship? So
true.
Also, we have a little public service announcement. We have some fire department coffee here in the Montgomery house. And we also have a new coffee mug from a fan in Germany. It says Guten Morgen, which I think stands for "Let's get back to the interview, Bruce." So that's what we're going to do. But my daughter is a big fan of fire department coffee. I think Luke's her favorite guest that we've ever had. So Luke, as we move into this and the story of how you kind of fell into fire department coffee, combining multiple loves of firefighting, firefighters drink coffee, you meet this barista who turns into your wife. So it all kind of comes together. But in any competitive category, differentiation is critical. What gap did you guys see in the market that you thought would help differentiate you from other, well-financed coffee companies? And your whole angle of giving back, that's certainly unique. We've had some cause or purpose-driven brands before, but how do you articulate that?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for your daughter's support. We really appreciate it. We'll have to send her a hat after this, and just thank you for the kind words as well. When we were roasting coffee, and this was really at the height for coffee, what they called the third wave of coffee, where a lot of roasters were focused on freshly roasted, single origin, farmed, farm to cup. Um, they were really talking about different processes, different varietals, even species, different regions that you grow, and different tasting notes. And there's a lot of different attributes in different types of coffees, and where it's from, the process, the varietal, the species, how it's roasted can all play a big role in how your coffee tastes. So coffee can have some really unique attributes depending on where it's from and what kind of coffee it is. So you can have coffees that taste like blueberries, or even some that might have tomato notes, or some that might taste more chocolatey. So there was there was it was that was one of the things that I really loved about coffee, is how much there was to learn and know about coffee. And I wanted to share that with our community, our friends and family. And a lot of those people were firefighters in my community, or people that I worked with and that were I was close with. It was really interesting to me that um, in the time of this third wave, where a lot of roasters were focused on all these different things about coffee, but the mass market and the average coffee consumer wanted a good cup of coffee that tasted like coffee. You can have this really fascinating cup of coffee that tastes like blueberries, and some people might look at that or taste it and or smell it and say that that's really delicious, that's really unique, and then others may say, what is that, and think that it's different than what they're used to. So as a lot of roasters were focused on a smaller segment of the category. And then what I would say is your coffee connoisseurs, that really wanted to learn about the different coffees and the different processes, and how you roast it and how you brew it and the different grinders. But the mass market really just wanted a good cup of coffee that they can enjoy and feel good about. So for me, the light bulb went off, is that I had a community that I was close to. I was able to tie the craft of coffee, and with that community, support that community, people to get behind that mission, and then grow that community. So as a lot of roasters were focused on what I would consider a smaller segment of the category, we were focused on building a brand and a community that the mass market could get behind and support.
So, Luke, that's very interesting. I've done a little work in coffee myself, nowhere near as much as you. Can you tell the folks just a little bit about kind of the high wire act of being so tied to coffee as a commodity and how that pricing? So, for the folks out there, when you buy coffee beans, it's called green coffee. And the market can move all over the place. And a lot of coffee profitability, and Luke will correct me here, can be driven by how effectively you buy and secure your green coffee. And, the market moves. And one of the stats I was given several years ago was that coffee is the second most highly traded commodity on the planet after oil, which was a real eye opener for me. So, Luke, do you want to just talk a tiny bit about, being kind of at the mercy of the green coffee market?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good question, and you're absolutely right. It's a largely traded commodity, and the cost of coffee is driven largely by the commodity price. because that is the main ingredient and the only ingredient in a lot of coffees. So it's largely driven by the commodity, and the commodity has been at an all-time high. It's been unprecedented times, things that people that have been in coffee for 30 years have not seen. And then that was already a factor. And then last year with the tariffs, that added another complexity to the commodity market, which created a lot of challenges for many roasters. And so it's been a really interesting market, but you're absolutely right. And I believe that being a smaller brand allows us to be more nimble and agile. And that has been a benefit to us to be able to move quickly when some of the larger companies, may not have been able to move as quickly. We were able to move quickly and adapt with the market. And so that has been a benefit to us. And oftentimes, there's many instances where the bigger roasters or the bigger coffee companies have an advantage because of their manufacturing capabilities, their economies of scale. But in this instance, we were able to navigate it likely faster and with more agility because of our size.
Great, great. I just wanted to put that out there because, many people that don't work in an industry where the commodity price is so critical, they just don't understand the high wire act. If it moves a dollar, if it moves in your favor, you're making a lot of money. And if it moves against you, that's extremely painful. Tracy?
Yeah. So as talk to us a little bit, our audience, about moving to brick and mortar. So as you mentioned, you started out D2C and then went to brick and mortar retail. So tell our audience a little bit about what decisions you had to make and how you decided to go to retail, and maybe specifically what retailer you went to first.
Yeah. So we look at that much differently than we did when we got into retail. So throughout Fire Department Coffee and growing the brand, growing the business, you learn things along the way, and a lot of things that you didn't know until you get into it. And sometimes you don't learn until you do it. It's not always the best way to do it. We've learned more so now that if we're getting into something new, we'll sometimes bring in consultants or independent contractors or advisors to help us navigate that. But as we were growing, we were growing and we built our infrastructure off our direct-to-consumer business, our roasting capabilities, our picking and packing, our fulfillment capabilities. We were building that with our direct-to-consumer business. And then when we got into retail, we didn't really know what we were getting into. So when we changed we didn't have a strategy when we got into retail. Now we have a strategy, and that is really important and critical to know what you're getting into when you get into retail, and having a channel strategy, because every channel is different, and the path to retail, even just the path to how you're going to get it to the retailer is different depending on which channel it is. So now we have a very focused approach. We only go into brick and mortar retail where we feel that we can win. And in order to win, we have to have good partnership. We have to have good communication with the retailer, and we need to be able to execute pricing, promotions, placement, all of the things that are critical for success. And those are vital for us now. If we make the decision to go into any new market, we need to know that we can execute on all those things for us to be successful and for the retailer to be successful, because it doesn't help anybody if we get into more doors and it doesn't sell. So our focus now is going into only new retailers where we believe we can win, but being more focused on the retailers we're already working with and who our key partners are and where we want to grow and scale and get those, all those things right where we can execute and create value for the customer, because that's really what we want to do. We want to be able to create value for the customer so that we could move more volume and invest back into our brand, our team, our mission, our capabilities. And getting economies of scale really helps with that and gaining efficiency, and that comes from volume. So moving more volume in the key retailers is a focused approach. When we got into retail, very early on, we actually went national in the food channel, and that channel can be a very challenging channel for emerging brands for multiple reasons. So the approach is no longer getting in more doors. It's how do we move more volume in the doors. We are really focusing on that units per store per week, growing velocities, growing volume, and then expanding in those more doors in those retailers. If there's availability for more doors in those retailers, having an omni approach. So not just looking at how do we sell in store, but how do we sell on the online market as well. And then when you get that right, you can scale SKUs. You can add SKUs into those retailers where you have proven track record, proven success, and the market also receives it, and the customer wants that product in those markets.
Well, you guys are making the right approach in
Absolutely.
our opinion, because we hear from lots of brands the tale of woe that they overexpanded into too many retailers because they wanted to put all those logos on their website. Now available here, get into a couple hundred stores, maybe trying to misuse a Navy term, do the shakedown cruise, figure out what's working and not, and then go deeper there, right?
Yeah.
So Luke, I got two quick follow-ups here. So when you were, I could tell by the words you were using, did you have someone on your team who understood going to brick and mortar, or did you learn the hard way about distribution, damages, deductions?
Plotting.
Yeah, some of those are, I know your body temperature just dropped like 4 degrees talking about those things, but
Yeah, so going into it, we didn't. No, we had to learn the hard way going into it, and
yeah.
and so now we learn the hard way, and those things can be really hard. And yeah, if you're creating burn and you're a growing brand, you can't invest back into growth properly. So yeah, we learned the hard way, and we had to learn quickly. And if we didn't learn quickly, it would have been the end of us. So we had to learn quickly. We had to adapt. We had to pivot. We had to optimize, and we had to get focus and clarity on where we needed to win and where our brand fit into the market.
So one other quick follow-up on Tracy's second part of Tracy's question. When you guys made the decision to go to brick and mortar, what criteria did you use for that first retailer? Did you opt for someone kind of close to Rockford and your home base that you could keep an eye on? Did you just happen to, stumble in and meet someone at a meeting? Was it pure happenstance? I mean, how did you pick that first partner?
That's a good question. I want to say what we did was we started doing ECRM events, and that's really where we started. We decided we want to go into retail, not for the right reasons. We just thought it was a path for growth for us, and a path that we wanted to go, but not really understanding what the strategy needed to be. So initially it was just, let's pitch to everybody and let's see who would take us in. And then we ended up getting in to some local retailers, which is really good retailer, and one that we're still working with today. And that was the approach. It was like, let's get in there anywhere we can. Shortly after that, we ended up going national with the retailer in the food channel, and that created where we started feeling what that means, and finding out about slotting, finding out about the deductions and fees that we weren't prepared for, and finding out about execution and the challenges of execution when you go through a third-party distributor, because it adds another layer of complexity. So
Yep.
we didn't have a strategy. We got in and then went in fast, and and it was really kind of I would say like I don't know how to say it, but it was like the wrong approach, and it was the wrong mindset, because more doors doesn't mean more success. It potentially means more challenges, and if you bite off more than you can chew, then it can become really complicated, and you got to fix it pretty quickly. Otherwise, it could put you in a bad situation. So we learned just by jumping in and doing it, and then from there we were able to learn, optimize, and then develop a strategy that was focused.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
That'll lead right into Tracy's next question.
Absolutely. So obviously it's a complex business. So you're trying to manage the different types of SKUs, pricing across D2C, across Amazon, and then across different retailers, whether that's club, mass, food. You mentioned that you started in food. So how did you look at all that and decide, okay, this is our strategy by class of trade, and just tell us a little bit about how you manage all that, because it's very complex.
Yeah, the food channel particularly is
Yes.
very complex for emerging brands, because almost always, and I shouldn't say always, because it's not, not one size fits all, and it's different for different categories and different brands and different retailers. But a lot of the times, in order to go into the food channel, you need to go through a third-party distributor, and I don't mean like you're sending it somewhere so that it ships out and it's more efficient. You're selling it to that third-party distributor, who's then selling it to the retailer, which takes a markup, and they have their own fees, and
Yep.
which increases the cost to the retailer, and then the retailer marks it up from there, and then you've got to work through this another additional layer to get things right in the retailer. So it just adds another layer of complexity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I would say that in the food channel, particularly to move volume, it depends on your brand. Because if your brand is a really unique, or I would say maybe really falls into that natural specialty category, to where it's it's very different, or it's something that would fit into a natural specialty retailer, that might make more sense at the price point. But for us, we're a premium coffee for the mass market, so we need to be accessible to the mass market. Our pricing needs to be approachable to the mass market, even though it is a premium product. And that can be really challenging if you're not going direct to the retailer, because you need to move enough volume to be able to justify to be in their DCs. And they have limited, especially in the food channel, they have limited space in what can go in their DCs. So you need to be able to turn enough product. But if you can't turn enough product because of your pricing, promotions, getting things executed properly, then that creates a whole challenge. That if your product is priced $4 or $5 higher than what it should be for the mass market, for the rest of the market, then it's likely
Good
not going to
luck.
perform well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Luke, one of the things that brands of all sizes, but particularly emerging brands on a growth trajectory like yours, at some point they opt to adjust their go-to-market strategy, whether it's because they're growing too fast or they figure the skill set is unique and they opt to engage a broker or a sales agent. So if you are utilizing third-party sales assistants, let's just use the word broker, what criteria did you use to select your broker? And maybe even before that, what was the aha moment when you're like, hey, if we want to grow and grow a little smoother, we need people that actually have done this before. So how did you think about, building out the sales function of your firm?
I think having like a focused approach allows you to really build the relationship. And you said it earlier, is going deeper in those retailers. And so you can only do that with so many, retailers, because then you're just stretched too thin. So being able to actually have the relationship, not hiring somebody to have that relationship for you. Like if it's a retailer that matters and it's a partner that you really want to grow with, and they're a key account for your strategy, I want to build that relationship directly. I want to be able to have that relationship so we can build trust together and grow together. And I can learn about that retailer and what their needs are. So I can be, Fire Department Coffee can be a good partner. We can be a good partner for them, and vice versa. And that's really, I believe, where, a lot of the magic can happen, is when you form a strong partnership with that retailer, where you can learn what their needs are, how their business works, and adapt to be a better partner for them, and them vice versa, learning about us, and about our capabilities and what's unique to us and how we can grow together. And that's really important. And so I'd say when you're thinking about hiring somebody, be mindful of that. That's my opinion, is to continue to maintain that relationship, but also adding more cost can also, be a disadvantage. So it's got to make sense when you do bring on someone. What is it that you need? What is it that you really need from them to help you grow and scale? Because in some instances, it may be less on the relationship side and more of the reporting side or the data side.
Or
So
or admin side. Yep.
yeah,
Hey, so a couple of things, folks, that Luke said that you've heard on prior episodes or when Tracy and I have just spoken with you directly. Even if you retain a broker to do, as Tracy used the right word, I think, the admin part, like orders, chasing deductions, understanding all the key dates and personnel changes, because a good broker is inside that retailer multiple times a week, and you might only get in there a couple of times a year for a meeting. Maybe you get some emails here and there. But as Luke said, when it's showtime, and your brand is presenting new items or a line review or a initial presentation, do not offload representing your brand to anybody but yourself, because no one
Exactly.
will care as much as you. No one can tell the story as much as you. And in the end, the key decisions, both good ones and bad ones, will need to be made by you. You can't offload accountability. So, Luke, one other thing on brokers, just to help the folks out there, and the specific numbers are your business, but can you just tell folks how compensation structures work with a broker? Fixed fee plus a percent of sales. At one point, does a fixed fee go away? Because we have lots of brands in the audience. It's like, my hobby became a business. My business is now becoming real, and I just can't handle everything myself, but I have no idea how to hire a broker.
yeah, I like what you said about the accountability. You can't there's going to be sometimes
No.
decisions that you've got to make that you don't want to delegate to somebody else. And when it's showtime, I think is the way you said, is like it's important to have that relationship directly. So as far as cost structure goes, it can be sometimes it's a retainer, sometimes it's a minimum, sometimes it's a percent. We we typically will stay away from any sort of like a retainer or a flat fee. We try to do where it's a percent,
Yeah,
and
and
the
Luke,
percent can range depending on your volume.
yeah, and
Right.
Luke, one other thing just to help educate people, because you guys have lived through it. What do you look for someone to represent you at multiple retailers? Do you look for a broker or a sales agent who really kicks butt at, say, Meyer, or do you only want people that have handled coffee in the past? Again, how do you think through your dream target broker to work with?
We started out with a national broker that was like represented everybody. And then it becomes a thing where you're managing a lot of, because at the end of the day, even if you're working with a broker, an agency, you still have to manage them and manage that agency. So you still need to, there's work involved no matter what. It's not like you can just hand it off and not be connected to it. So we started out that way, and then that was the not the right approach for us because we were a smaller brand in a massive broker company. So we actually don't use brokers in a lot of accounts, and if we have a broker, it's more focused on what we need. And so it took for us to really get into it and in some ways learn the hard way to really identify what it is that we need, and then having representation where we need it.
Yeah. So very rifle approach, very focused. So that makes a lot of sense. So it's not one size fits all, as you really alluded to. So talk to us a little bit about, so when you do come to a conflict, or you feel like somebody's not doing their job or meeting your expectations, how do you work through that with a broker when you've got some kind of issue?
You got to give feedback. You got to be clear on expectations. I think across the board, whether it's your team or an external team, setting clear goals and expectations is key, because if they don't know what you expect from them, then it's hard for them to have clarity and focus on what they need to do to be successful. So just having great communication, building that relationship with them, and setting clear goals and expectations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that's very logical. The other thing, folks, that has worked in the past is a set meeting schedule, right? Even if it's just check in. If everything's great, hey Luke, it's going great, no real issues, then everyone gets 30 minutes of their day back, which is not a bad thing. But if the only time you break the glass and call your broker is when, something's going wrong, that's not the way to manage it. You can't
No.
behave like an NFL owner where a coach takes over an 0-17 team and doesn't win the Super Bowl the next year, and it's like, yeah, you suck. Get out of here. Guys, I have no players. How are we going to win?
Yeah,
All right,
that's
Luke,
a
so let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, sorry. I was just gonna say that's a really good point. It's you got to know how you're performing weekly. Like you got to be, if it's an account that matters, you want reporting as much as possible so that you can see how you're tracking, and then why, if there was a dip that week, what happened, what can change, or what's the reason for it. And that's really having a focused approach, and like you said, the whatever that cadence might be. But if it's a really important account that needs a lot of attention, you likely probably need reporting weekly, and you may not need to meet weekly, but you need to have visibility on how the business is tracking.
Yeah, another thing that Tracy and I have seen, folks, and then we're gonna move on to the fun stuff that Luke and his team are really, really good at, is when there's an issue with a broker or an agency or anyone that's an outsourced skill set for your firm, communication goes both way, as does availability. You can't only call your broker, let's say, when there's a problem and, they have other clients. And the same thing, when they call you with a question or an issue, it can't be your 14th priority to get back to them, because then the whole, as Tracy said, the relationship starts falling apart.
Yeah.
Okay, Luke, for anyone who follows your company and brand, you guys do a lot of creative stuff, but what are the marketing vehicles you use at Fire Department Coffee to drive awareness, trial, and the all-important turns at retail? You've mentioned velocity several times, and in the end, one of Tracy's bumper stickers is sell in is great, but sell through is where you win.
Yeah.
So you just got to know what your turn velocity hurdle is and how the paper is going to be graded. So what do you guys do to promote FDC?
We do multiple things. Data and analytics is very important. Tracking data and having clear data that is, it's tracking properly, and getting your data and analytics tight so that you have as much information to make as many informed decisions as possible. And then, we gather quite a bit of data through, just our website. So we have first party data that we grow through driving traffic to our website. And we do a lot of that through social media and content creation. So we create content that drives awareness, drives engagement, creates conversations on social media. And then a lot of times it'll lead them to checking out our website. When they come to our website, we'll try to capture their email or their SMS or get them to purchase. And so we're driving traffic. So whether it's a retailer or our own direct consumer, we want to drive traffic to that source. We want to track the data as much as possible. We want to optimize the data. We want to optimize where that traffic is going. So if it's to the website, we want to optimize the website. We want to convert, and we want to understand the life cycle of the customer very well, because the customer might hear about us on social media. They might go to our website. Hopefully they make a purchase, and then they might hear about us in a different market. And then they might go to Walmart and purchase our coffee, and that's completely fine with us. But we a lot of times drive people to Walmart to purchase our product, and but we want to understand the life cycle of the customer, because it might start as direct to consumer and then move into another market like Walmart, where there's less friction, or they can go purchase on the shelf if they want. They can buy it in app if they want. They can buy it online. They can have it delivered to them through that. So our goal is to be where the customer is and be as easy to order, but driving awareness, driving traffic, capturing as much data as you can from that traffic, optimizing the data, optimizing performance on all fronts, and continuing to just use that information to find opportunities and gain efficiencies so that you can scale more efficiently.
So Luke, when Tracy and I saw you speak from the stage at ECRM's Founders Innovation Day, you were one of the founders up there, and I'm asking you to kind of reach into your wayback machine of your memory. It's been a couple of weeks now, but you had a really unique view on social media that I thought was an interesting approach. There's a lot of brands out there, they just want likes and followers, and but they might just be spinning their wheels and not driving anyone to actually purchase or into a retail partner. Can you just speak about that a little bit? Because man, we just hear horror stories of, well, I hired all these influencers and nothing happened except they cashed my checks.
Yeah, similar to brick and mortar, e-commerce, whatever it is that wherever you're selling, you have to have a strategy to everything. And so if you're just posting and you just posting whatever and there isn't much of a strategy behind it, it's harder to gain traction. So for us, we look at our social media and the content creation as awareness driving, engaging, building community, staying top of mind, helping with lifetime value. And that's how we look at social media, more of an awareness community building engine that can be very self-sustaining if you build it right. And so that has been our focus on social media. So if we, we'll use social media for advertising and deliver paid advertising through social media to drive traffic, but we treat that very differently than the content that we post on our social media feeds. The content that we post on our social media feeds is more about creating content that creates engagement, that keeps us top of mind, that drives awareness, and then if you're trying to just sell on that content or you're just pushing product, a lot of times people will turn off and it'll lower that engagement, which will lower that awareness and that reach, because people are sold things every day, all throughout the day, and get advertising all the time. And they want to get engaged with something that they want to engage with, usually not because they're being sold something.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, Luke, so your company's growing, and this kind of gets into our contract manufacturing part of the discussion, or in your case, contracting out some of the roasting. So as your firm grows, you hit that decision point of, you and your wife might have had a little 5-pound roaster, and that was kind of fun as you learned, but then all of a sudden it's like, wow, I got a real business here. So how did you think through expanding to other roasters? And we speak to people about contract manufacturing, but I'll use roasters in your situation here. How did you go about picking a partner? What did you look for? What kind of certifications, minimum order quantities? What are the things you thought through as you and your colleagues might have walked through a roaster with your, maybe old school clipboard going, okay, these are the 5 things I got to see.
So we still roast a significant amount of our coffee, and but I believe in vertical integration to scale. It may work for some companies where they're able to be a strong manufacturer, a strong strong in supply chain, strong in manufacturing, and strong in the brand side. Excuse me. But often the case is there's so much that goes into each of them. Being a really good manufacturer, being a really strong brand, and it's really understanding, as a company, is where your strengths lie and where do you see that that we should where should we build our strategy, because the strategy is us deploying resources and capital, which is also human capital, which is capital for that. So having a good strategy around that. So for us, when you get to a certain amount of scale, then you can work with some of the top co-manufacturers where you need it. And that's really important, because if you're working with smaller co-manufacturers, they likely will not have some of the same quality controls in place, which is critical, because your product has to be consistent, it has to be high quality, and it needs to maintain that consistent quality. And if you're working with smaller co-manufacturers, they could run into multiple challenges that could impact your product, which is not good for the company or for the customer. So when you work with a co-manufacturer, if you have enough scale, then you can work with some of the top co-manufacturers. And then when you do work with those co-manufacturers, you want to make sure that they have the proper quality assurance and quality controls in place. For us, we have some proprietary products. So we have a proprietary spirit infused coffee. So that's something that we don't outsource, and it would be difficult for us to outsource because we've kept it a trade secret. So we focus on our capabilities for what is proprietary to us. And then for the things that we can work with top co-manufacturers or packers, and we know that we're going to get the proper costing and the proper quality that we need, then that's a path we'll look at and explore. But those are decisions we make along the way. But quality and efficiency and cost are all very important to create value for the customer.
Yeah, and it's great that you guys can still do a lot of your own roasting, because as you well know, and Tracy and I hear a lot, as an emerging brand and you're growing fast, it is really hard to properly forecast. And if you're outsourced all your production and you're somewhat dependent on a third party, well, they have other customers. So you can't call up and say, "Hey, we are kicking ass at XYZ and we need to up our order." And they're like, "Great, Luke, we'll get back to you in 6 weeks," as we discussed. That would be a bad day. Tracy?
Very, very important thing that you just said there, because speed is critical too. And having that flexibility and agility to move quickly if you need to gives you the opportunity to where there might be an opportunity that you need to move fast on if you're going to take it. And some of the bigger companies may not be able to move that fast. So it also adds an advantage if you can move quickly. So I think you brought up a really good point.
Yeah, and I love that. And you said that earlier too, Luke, about being flexible and nimble versus the bigger guys. And I think that's the strength of your brand. And I'm sure that the retail partners that you work with, love that about you and your brand. So that's fantastic. So note that, small emerging brand audience today. So let's talk a little bit about something that you also talked about at Founders Day in New York back in December, is capital. So talk to us a little bit about your capital structure. Your brand is growing a lot. You need access to that. So talk to us a little bit about, have you taken on an outside investment? And if so, what was the criteria that you looked for in an investor? Or if you haven't taken any kind of capital yet, what would you look for in an investor in the future?
Yeah, we have taken on some investors, and I've been fortunate to be able to maintain control of the board as well as the shares. And I think that's important as you're growing, and because you have the vision, and you want to not have to change that course sometimes. But I believe bringing in the right partner at the right time can be very valuable too. As for me, in the very beginning, we've actually always have been, not in an abundance of resources as an emerging brand. And in the very beginning, I didn't know anything about capital or financials and how they work. I couldn't tell you what a P&L was or a balance sheet. I didn't understand any of that stuff. So initially, what I was able to do was I was able to start building something that others were able to see the vision and get behind and support it. So initially, I traded sweat equity to bring in partners that I trusted, that I believed that would help me build the business. And so that's the first stage of how I deployed resources, was by trading equity for in exchange for work and support. And a lot of those are I shouldn't say a lot, because it's not like I did a ton of these, but a few of those were actually firefighters. And one of them is Jason Patton, who leads our social media content. And that was something that I knew that wasn't my skill set. That wasn't something that I wanted to do or that I would be good at. So I saw that as a skill and talent that he had. and he believed in the mission, and we partnered up and was able to help grow the business together as I was able to share that vision. And then others along the way have helped me on different things. So I've been fortunate to have people help me in different stages with different things. In some instances, it was understanding those financials and understanding capital and understanding, how to talk to the banks and communicate with the banks and build bank relationships. And so been very blessed and fortunate to have support along the way and have good partners. So I think it's key that number one is you trust them. Trust is very important if you're bringing somebody into the business and trading equity for whether it's for their time or for capital in most instances. What else outside of the capital may they be able to bring? And maybe it's strategic. So they can bring strategic support because they might have an expertise or connections or access to things that you don't have. So I think just building partners off of trust and bringing in the right partners at the right time is very important.
Yeah, you said some of the magic words there, Luke, about looking kind of for my words here, not yours, but value added capital, people that can help you aside from just handing you a check. So one other question about investors. So as I'm sure of you've learned, even if it's your brother or best friend, if people give you their money, they tend to want to know what's going on with it. So can you tell the folks a little bit about, hey, once you take on an investor, life changes a little bit because they're calling me all the time, or I now have to do a really detailed report quarterly. Just tell people about like the frequency of contact, upping your game on reporting. Um, you know, Very rarely do you find the person who sends you a check and says, "Yeah, keep me posted as you have time." So how does the world change once you bring in some outside money?
I think if you bring in the right partners, it shouldn't be disruptive, and that's the key, I think, to choosing the right partner is that you don't want it to be disruptive to your business, and they should be supporting, and they should be, you do need to update them, and everybody needs accountability, including myself. So I think it's a good thing. Structure is good. I thrive in structure, with the military background and the fire service. Structure is, for me, it's not a bad thing. So I think having accountability and having structure to those things can also help in a way that it's not disruptive and it's not in the weeds of your business necessarily. It's they're there to provide support and advice and help protect the business. And I think when you bring in the right partners, they'll do that. They will help protect you. And there's a lot of things I don't know. So I would prefer more people that are more experienced and have more wisdom and expertise in areas than me to be alongside me on this journey, because it's going to help the company be more successful.
That's great. Great insight. So here's an interesting question. So a fellow entrepreneur comes up to you and says, "Hey, I want to start a CPG brand." What's the number one advice you would give that person that really wants to start their own brand?
Aside from, as long as it's not coffee, I'll help you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if it's coffee, forget about it. I I'm very I try to understand before I give advice, and I try to be cautious on advice that I give, because my experience might not translate to someone else's experience, and so I try to preface that when I do give advice, that this is my experience. This is, you can take it for what it is, but it doesn't mean that when I say that, it doesn't mean that there isn't a different way, or that my way is the only right way. So I'll try to learn about that entrepreneur and what they're doing, and give advice if I feel that I can give advice, and if they'll hear it or if it will be helpful. That would be my goal if somebody asked a question about starting a business. I would try to understand what they were thinking and try to see where I could be helpful, rather than just tell them what I think, because what I think might not be the right thing. So I want to try to be helpful and understand. And I think that one of the things that's really important is for any entrepreneur, just got to keep moving forward. You're never going to have all of the answers. Sometimes you do figure it out as you go. You want to avoid being blindsided, and you want to avoid learning the hard way. But a lot of times you just got to move forward and do it, and you'll learn as you grow. The challenges will make you stronger. You'll learn from those things. You'll grow in it. You'll grow from it. Your team will grow from it. You'll learn, and it'll evolve. The company will evolve. The brand will evolve. And so, what you think is the vision 1 year might change in a year or two on the focus. We were printing shirts a year ago. We stopped printing shirts, but it's just like sometimes entrepreneurs have this thing too, where you want to do everything and you have all these ideas and maybe an abundance of ideas sometimes, but you got to control yourself and surround yourself with people that can also help you stay focused, because focus, I believe, really is the key to driving meaningful value.
Well, and I think your humility there, Luke, is refreshing, that you try to understand where the people kind of stand, because oftentimes, whether it's from the stage or something, you'll hear a speaker, and when they give that advice, they either give you like the 15 things that can go wrong, or you get the other end of the spectrum where they're like, just go for it. If it's your dream, triple mortgage your house. Your kids don't need to go to school. I mean, so you kind of have to understand. And then, every graph, whether it's your success, your finances, your happiness, it's not a graph from lower left to upper right in a straight line. I mean, baseball analogy coming, you're going to get knocked down. There's going to be the inside pitch. You might even get hit by a few, but you got to keep getting up, right? Because it's not easy. All right, Luke, we're rounding third, heading for home. Another baseball analogy. Who has had the greatest influence on your career? And you can name names if you want, but what did this person or a couple of people do for you that's really stuck with you from whenever that advice came? When even sometimes it might have been like, damn, that was harsh. And then you're like, oh, now I understand. That was actually a favor.
Yeah. I've had some really great mentors that have helped me along the way and in different stages with different things. My parents were a great influence on me from just work ethic. My dad is a hard worker. They had him and my mom, started a family at a young age, came up from, very little, and he became an engineer, and he didn't go to college for it, and just worked hard and learned and grew. And that's been something I've carried with me throughout my career, is just working hard on whatever it is that I'm doing, giving my best. And I remember a moment when I was working on my car at the time. My dad was helping me fix something on my car that I had when I was a teenager. And I was working at a fast food chain at the time, and it was my first job. And I was complaining to my dad about the work that I was doing at the fast food chain. And he said, basically very directly, is like, you'll never know what opportunities are behind the door if you don't work hard. If you don't work hard and you don't give it your best, even if you don't like what you're doing at the time, but if you just basically don't complain about it, just do the work and do a good job, whatever you're doing, and then opportunities will come from that. And the flip side to that is if you complain or think that you have it bad and you don't work hard, you'll never know what's on the other side because you'll never see the opportunities because they won't be presented to you. So that's something that stuck with me just growing up. Just always wanted to work hard, give my best, not complain, do the best that I can in anything that I'm doing. And then as far as like business mentors, I've had some really good business mentors who one of them was very direct with me and told me about some of the things that he saw as strengths, but also weaknesses that I had. And being able to reflect and have somebody that you respect tell you, where your weakness is, really, yeah, have to take a minute and let that sink in and think about it and reflect. Because here's somebody that I have a lot of respect for is telling me something that I need to reflect on and areas that I need to improve on. So that having somebody along the way that can tell you the truth and not just give you positive feedback. And then my wife, I call her my chief truth officer. She's the one who will tell me how it is and keep me humbled and keep me grounded. So having people that will give you honest feedback is really important to me.
Well, I think all of our wives serve that purpose, and I'm not kidding, right?
So true. So true. So, fun question, Luke. Tell us your favorite sports team, band, or brand, and why you follow them. And you can pick one or more.
Okay. Yeah, I like sports, but I don't watch a ton of sports. I like boxing a lot. So if I ever get to watch a boxing match, I or mixed martial arts, I like watching that. Um, I have a hat right next to me. It's my Walmart hat. I love Walmart. They've been such a great partner to us, and I just respect how they do business. Watch what they do in retail, how they move, how they stay, leading the charge on multiple fronts. And that's a company that also gives back significantly to their communities. When there's natural disasters, they're deploying resources. They take care of their people and they have great people and some of the best in retail. And I've learned a ton from them. So I'm very loyal to Walmart. I love Walmart and I shop at Walmart a lot. And they also, I believe in what they do for creating value for the customer and helping people save money and live better because everybody loves getting a good deal. So Walmart is and a good deal on premium products. So they're a brand that I love and respect and that we have a great partnership with. So I would say that they're my wife always. I'm in Arkansas all the time. My wife always she always teases me because I just if she's shopping somewhere else, I tell her, "Wait, hey."
I love it.
I shop at Walmart a lot, but I appreciate them and they're a great brand that I have a lot of respect for.
Well, it's amazing that they've been able to stay so sharp and innovative and consistent as they've gotten so big.
Yeah.
And not only do they run great brick and mortar operation, but their e-com business is massive as well. All right, Luke, I got to push you on one. Tell me about your favorite band, man. I got to know. America wants to know when you get in your car, what's on the radio.
I listen to a lot of Christian music. I like Brandon Lake. I like Hillsong. Um, I mix it up. I listen to a little bit of everything, but I do listen to a lot of worship and Christian music. And yeah, Brandon Lake's a good one. I listen to a ton of artists. I can't say that I have like a favorite, but Hillsong, I think on my music, I've got like a Hillsong channel. I like that.
All right. So
Love
Luke,
that.
this has been great. Thank you so much for your time. Tell the folks how they can either get in touch with you if you'd like that to be an option, or how they can learn more about Fire Department Coffee, your business, and the causes you guys are supporting.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate that. They can go to our website. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, so they can check it out there. And yeah, appreciate it. They can check us out on social media. They can watch our videos, follow us there, and yeah, appreciate everybody listening, and thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
No, this has been great. All right, Tracy, I hope your arm is loose. Couple baseball references. The big finish.
Absolutely, coming out of spring training. But Luke, thanks so much for joining us today. This has been great. You gave our small emerging challenger brand audience just some great advice about strategy, about focus. It was just great advice. So we really appreciate you joining today. And audience, thank you for joining us today as well. Continue to follow us on Spotify, on Apple, as well as LinkedIn. And all those links are always in our show notes. So don't be shy about clicking on those links and following us. And we post every Tuesday. And great episode to start off a great 2026. So thanks so much, Luke, and also for our audience for joining us today.
Good luck out there, folks.